So I'm installing this floor that has these flush wood floor registers that the client wants. And this is a pre-finished floor, so there's a little bit of a trick to it, and I wanted to share it in case you come across the same thing. This is just my technique. It might not be the best, but this is the one I use. You know, obviously with the drop-in registers, you can cut kind of however you want, whether it's with a jigsaw or an oscillating saw. But with these, because all of your cuts are exposed, you really have to make them nice and straight. You know, and especially with a pre-finished floor like this, chip out is a little bit of a concern. You don't want any chips showing. If it's, you know, a raw wood floor, unfinished, you can fill it a little bit with sawdust when you sand. But in this case, we don't have that option. So really need to make perfect cuts all the way around. And this is the way I do it. This house has registers going both directions, both perpendicular like this, and also some that are parallel. I use the same technique no matter where I am. The first thing I do is I tape off where I'm going to be cutting, partially to reduce chip out, but mostly so I can see my lines really easily. So I kind of eyeball where it's going to be. This is the frame part. There's two parts to this register. There's the frame and there's the cover that drops in like that. So I kind of tap this into place. These are nailed down, they're not floating. And then I use my speed square to get it nice and square. Make sure it's lined up where it's going to go. Square. And I'm doing one row at a time here just to make sure we get it right. Because, you know, I could mark everything off and cut it all at once, but it might shift, it might change. It's best to do it in stages, even though it takes a little bit more time. This cutting technique that I'm going to show you saves a lot of time too. So now I've got my lines all drawn up. I don't know if you can see them very well. I'm going to use my table saw to cut the two perpendiculars, and then I'll show you how I cut this last piece. So I can see that my square line is ever so slightly off. If you can see it very well in there, from my table saw to the little mark I made with my speed square. I'm going to cut short, and then when we fit the piece in, we'll make sure it fits. Otherwise, I don't want to be too wide. And what I'm trying to do is cut up to the line. I don't want to lose my mark. Best to be short. So now I'm going to drop the blade down, put my fence on, and I'm going to raise the blade up to cut this last piece. I'm going to make sure I've got it in the right spot by measuring, and then raise it up so that it takes that piece out. So it's reading a little over 4 1/8. I'm going to start it at 4, accounting for the kerf and making sure I don't overcut it. Probably help to take my riving knife out. So I'm going to take my riving knife out and then drop the blade down and raise it up to cut this. I know it's probably something your shop teacher back in high school would have screamed at you for, but this is the word. Perfectly square cutout. And it's not perfect on these lines. It's about a 1/16 off. But I know because I went off this edge for the table saw and this edge for the fence that it should be pretty square. So that's where we're going to start, and we're going to move on and make sure it's square on the other pieces. So now I'm just dry fitting it. I don't know how well you can see the details from the camera, but these lines are absolutely perfect right now. Take that in here to show you. So now we're going to move on to the second row. I'm not going to nail anything down until it's all done. The second row is pretty self-explanatory. You just have to cut up to that edge, and as long as we're square, we're not going to have any problems. So we're going to cut up to that edge perfectly square, and then start the next piece, or start what we chopped off here, and go from there. Okay, well, this is the easy part. These middle pieces. And again, we're just dry fitting it for now. All right, now this last piece, we're going to use the same technique we used here. You can see it's real snug in there. Looks like I need a little bit more tape there. This one I'm going to mostly use the lines from the others. And hopefully they're perfectly square. If not, well, I'm using a pretty short piece here, so we can always cut a new one. Not like I'm going to waste a whole lot if I screw up this one. And just for fun, let's see how square these are. Pretty good. Yeah, right on. Okay, so same technique as before. I'm going to cut my perpendiculars, and I'm going to go pretty much up to that line, a little bit short because I've got the kerf of the blade coming the other direction to take that corner out. And sometimes I'll pick that out with a chisel or something. In case you're wondering why I kind of built up this cut, I did a short cut here, and then a cut there, and then a short cut there, and a cut there. Since I was so far off my miter guide, I didn't want it wobbling and kicking back on me, so I kind of slowly worked my way into the blade. Just a little bit of table saw safety. If I had a cross-cut sled, that would work even better, but I don't have that on the job site, so this is the way it works. So, next piece of business is getting this cut done. In this case, let's see, about 1 7/8. I'm going to go just a little bit beyond that, like 15/16, just to give myself some leeway. So I know I can back it up another 16th. Okay, moment of truth. Let's see if this all fits. This is just a dry fit for now. Get that nice tight in there. That is perfect. Take this tape off so you can see. Actually, I'm going to get this whole thing nailed together and then I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Okay, there's the finished result.